Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first water cooler of 2010. By now, hopefully everyone has their year-end stuff done. I just spent the whole morning doing sales tax and use tax and withholding tax returns, and I'm pretty much done with year-end as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I'm not really done, but I'm done with it. Today we're going to talk about three things. Mary Jo is going to talk about how to put notes on your statements for different clients or for different types of clients, at the ending, at the beginning, how to keep them from showing up again, all sorts of different things. I'm going to talk about something that we get a lot of questions about, how to print an outstanding check report, which is not really something you can do by simply going and printing an outstanding check report. There's a trick. And we're also going to talk about how to wish list something at STI, because we kind of wish that there were just a report you could run. And I'm also going to talk about moving invoices between vendors, so that if you set up a vendor and somebody sets up another vendor but they're both the same, you can combine them. You can take an invoice that's been misapplied and put it in the right place, all those things. And we'll take a look at all those three topics. We are going to look first at what you've got over on the right-hand side of your screen, which is a box that looks a little bit like this. For some of you, depending on how big your screen is, this box may be covering up the box that contains my screen. And therefore you may be unable to see certain parts of my screen because of this box here. So you'll notice that there's a smaller box juts off to the left. It's got some icons in it, and the one at the top looks like arrows pointing to the right. If you'll click that, this box on the right will get out of the way. This icon that looks like arrows pointing to the right will turn into an icon that looks like arrows pointing to the left. Clicking it again will bring this box back. That's important because if you're shy and you want to ask a question, you want to bring this box back and type your question in the question area. And once you enter that question, we will see it. And at certain points throughout the meeting, we will stop and answer questions. If you are not shy, you can raise your hand with this button here at the bottom of the three buttons that jut off to the left. Looks kind of like a hand with an up arrow, and that's exactly what it is. It's to raise your hand. Once we see that somebody's got their hand raised, we will unmute them and they can ask their question. So let's go ahead and close this up, and I'm going to start talking about accounting stuff. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is where to go to print an outstanding checklist. And most people would tend to come into Accounts Payable and perhaps look around in reports, or maybe look around in checks, or perhaps in invoices, and you're not going to find it because there is no such thing. Now, what stumps some people is that the place to do this is over here, and it's not under reports. It's actually kind of a trick. There is no outstanding check list in Accounts Payable, but if you start a reconciliation for that particular account, that bank account, and you simply reconcile the account right off the bat, when you come out, one of your options is to print a reconciliation report, and that reconciliation report contains a list of outstanding checks if you choose to do that. Now, the trick to it is when you first come in to reconcile an account, let's say your operating account, it'll ask you for the statement date, the beginning balance, and an ending balance. The statement date will sometimes be defaulting to what it thinks to be the next month after your last reconciliation. So for starters, you may want to simply hit D in the statement date field, and that will put in what it thinks to be today's date. My demo system thinks today's date is 11/17/09, so when I hit D in that date, it will put that date in there. Now, the reason I do this, if you've printed an outstanding check report using this methodology, let's say 2 days ago, or maybe you actually reconciled your bank account 2 days ago, when you come back in here, the system's going to try and be smart and say, well, it must be 30 days later because here he is back again wanting to reconcile, and it's going to put in a date that it thinks to be 30 days past the last time you reconciled, or the last statement date you had. And if you are not in that period. In other words, if you're still in January and you reconciled a couple days ago, and now the system, when it sees you come back in, puts in a February date, when you go to click OK, it's going to tell you that you can't reconcile for that statement date because it's not the current reporting month. So I, as a rule of habit, have always gotten used to simply coming in here when I want to do this little trick and pressing D within the statement date field just to avoid that happening. Now the next thing you want to do is you want to block your beginning balance and paste it, copy it from your beginning balance field and paste it into your ending balance field. When you first come in here, ending balance will be 0, because what it really wants you to do is put in your ending balance from your bank statement. And as far as it's concerned, it doesn't know what that is, and it doesn't, so it puts a 0 in there. You don't have an ending balance from a bank statement, and you really want the system to immediately assume when you get in there that everything is in balance, so that you can then get back out without marking any checks, without doing any actual reconciliation, and on the way out you can print that reconciliation report. So you want to take the beginning balance and paste it into the ending balance so that when you click OK, the system will show a difference of 0. It's basically as if you were actually reconciling and you are now done and everything's in balance and you've got a difference of 0. By faking it out like this, you can then immediately press the Finalize button, and when it asks, do you want to print a reconciliation report, say yes, and when it asks what type of entries to show, you say outstanding, and I'm going to preview mine, but you'd probably print yours to the printer, and you get something that shows you the outstanding checks. Right there. Every outstanding check is listed right there. Every unreconciled deposit is listed right there, and then you have some summary information for the reconciliation report here. But the bottom line is, these are your outstanding checks. Now, it would be nice if there were simply an outstanding check report, either within Accounts Payable or within General Ledger or within both. The thing is that these outstanding checks and the fact that they're outstanding lives in General Ledger, and that's confusing to some people because they think Accounts Payable is what we use to deal with checks. And it is until they get posted, and once they're posted to GL, GL is where you reconcile, GL is what knows what's still outstanding, and GL is where that outstanding check report would likely show up if SDI were to put it in. So I'd like everyone here that thinks that it's kind of silly that you have to jump through these hoops to print an outstanding check report to send a quick email to wishlist@tabs3.com, and that's a number 3, TABS3.com, and in the subject put wanted : outstanding check report, and then describe your deepest desire to have the General Ledger system print an outstanding check report without having to go into reconciliation to do it. And if you will either blind carbon copy or just plain carbon copy paul.purdue@attorneycomputersystems.com, that's paul.purdue like the school, P-U-R-D-U-E @attorneycomputersystems.com, we will also send a like email expressing the same desire on your behalf. And then STI gives that double weight because they've got the reseller, the consultant, coming at them from one side. They've got the client coming at them from another side saying, you should do this. Each one of those emails is a vote that puts this up on the list. Now, it's not just outstanding check reports that you can request through the wish list at tabs3.com. It's basically anything. If you think there's something missing or something that could be better in a certain way or something that maybe isn't doing something exactly the way you wish it would or think it should or wish it would in addition to the way it does it now, if you'll put that down in a wish list item and email it to that address, wishlist@tabs3.com, and blind carbon copy or carbon copy us, we'll get the vote in for that too. This is how things change in the STI line of software, and it's important to know that you have a voice in making those things happen. Now, I'm going to not finalize, and I'm going to get out of GL, And I'm going to show you very quickly something that we kind of stumbled upon. I didn't know this was in here. I'm sure Mary Jo did, but I didn't know this was in here. And we found it the other day. It's called Transfer Invoices Between Vendors. We found it because we needed it for something and ended up discovering it. But if you've ever entered an invoice on the wrong vendor, or you have perhaps some of our clients have more than one person in the accounting department and sometimes more than one person writing checks. So sometimes a vendor will get set up twice with a slightly different name without either of the two people realizing that until maybe months later. So if you need to combine those, maybe you want to transfer all the invoices from one vendor into the other vendor and then just get rid of the first vendor, this will do that. You can transfer from whatever vendor you want to whatever vendor you want, and you can transfer paid invoices, unpaid invoices, or both. You can also transfer posted checks, meaning that the checks that have already been written and have already been paid and have already been posted can also be transferred. And you can pick a beginning and ending date for the invoice date or a beginning and ending reference number. Now, be careful, because if you don't specify anything, it's not going to transfer anything. Well, that may not be true, but as you'll see here, the beginning reference number is 0. I would recommend that you choose the highest reference number as the end if you want to move them all. That way you've got a span that includes everything. It doesn't matter that the dates are blank, but if you say 0 through 0, it might just come back and say no invoices were transferred. And then all you do is say OK, and bam, you've got your invoices transferred from one vendor to another. A lot of different times when this can come in handy. I know that I've had clients in the past tell me that they have done this manually. So this feature is certainly something that can save quite a bit of time, especially if you have that unique scenario, well, not so unique scenario of somebody having created a vendor under one name and somebody else having created it under another. It may go on for months and months before you realize that, and this allows you to combine them. I'm going to ask Mary Jo if there are any questions. Do you see anything?
Nothing right now.
Okay, good. I must have done a good job of explaining. I'm going to turn it over to Mary Jo now so that she can talk about statement notes.
Okay, I'm going to go over into tabs here, and I'm going to talk about how do you get statement notes. Do I have control, Paul?
You do now.
I'm going to talk about how you get the statement notes either to show up at the beginning of your statement or the ending, and how to change them if they're there already and you don't want that to be there. You want to change the language or something like that, and how to do that by different clients. So I'm going to come into the Statement tab. Statement Setup. And then the first thing I'm going to show you is to add or to delete or to change a statement note. The statement notes live under the statement template. If you come under Statement Template and we choose a template, got a little technical difficulties here. It's a little slow on my end.
Are you getting a lag? I'll go ahead and choose a template.
I'm getting a little bit of a lag. Yeah. Not sure if everybody's getting this lag. So, okay. So we're going to come in and we're going to choose a template. Let's say we're going to choose the hour template. That's fine. Say OK. And right here you can see where it has statement notes. And you've got beginning notes and ending notes. And then you've got 2 check boxes. And you can include the statement notes for each file on combined statements, or you can include the statement notes on a cover statement. So you've got those choices there if you want to do those things. You'll notice if I do the drop-down for the beginning statement note, there's 2 that are already predefined in here. There's one, a finance charge of 1% per month will be added to this statement, or unpaid balances, whatever that one is. And then you've got payments received after such and such a date will not be reflected on this statement. So there's things like this that you might want to have all of your clients see. Every statement that you print out, you want these beginning and ending statement notes on. And it might just be that those two, that particular payments received after message is only for the template that uses the hour. If you wanted to do a different note for a different template, maybe on the final statement that you're using for other clients, you can see this one has both the payments and the finance charge. note on that, one for the beginning, one for the ending. So depending on what type of clients that you're using will depend on what type of notes that you might want to show on here. You might want on contingency cases, if you're just showing them, a statement to show, what you've done so far on the case, to just have some kind of a note on there to tell them that, the charges on the statement, this is not a bill, this is just for your reference, things like that. So depending on what type of template you're using for your clients will depend on what you put here. Now, how do you change this kind of stuff? I've got two that are predefined in here. How do I add a statement note here, or how do I change the language? That's done. If I close this up and go back under Statement Setup, under the Statement Notes icon, if you come under there, you'll see that if I do the drop-down, I've got my two notes that have already been created. So if I wanted to change the language on the finance charge, I could come in here and I could say, it's going to be 2%, and change that per month. And then save it, and then whatever templates that I've got this assigned to, that will change that language on that template as well. Now, if I want to create a brand new one, again, I'm just going to hit the new. I'm not going to change my note there. And you can give it an ID, and you can just call it whatever you want. I'll just call it Test 1. And then you can just put whatever language that you want in here as well. And that is where you can create a new statement note. And then you can decide whether you want it to be beginning or ending on the template when you choose the note. So here we've got a new one created. And I'm not sure if that typing went through. I'm not seeing it yet. Is it lagging still, Paul?
It seems to be.
Yeah.
We'll just type my favorite phrase, now is the time. And I'll save that, and it should catch up.
Okay, so now I'm catching up there. All right, so now I've created a template note there, a statement note. So if I come over here to my template, I can again choose a template. And I'll go ahead and choose the invoice template, doesn't matter. And I can add that new note. You'll see now I've got that in my list for my statement note lookup. And so I can add that as my beginning or my ending note, and then save my template, and then for whatever clients I'm preparing statements for, under the invoice template, these notes will show up there. Now, the other thing I want to show you is, what if you don't want all the clients to see a certain note? The example I usually give is, what if you've got a client that's late paying and you want to put a note at the top, please contact our office as soon as possible to arrange for payment of this bill, or past due, or whatever you want to do there. You can come under the client, and you can actually do a statement note for just that client statement. And if you go under Statement Options, you'll see that there's a beginning statement note and an ending statement note for each client. And if we come in here, I can type in, again, I'm just going to do a Test 1 here. And I can put in a beginning statement note. Now, if I'm doing it for the reason that I had just told you, if they're past due, I don't want that to come on every single statement that I put out there. I just want it on this statement, telling them that this statement is past due and that they need to contact our office for payment. So I can check down here at the bottom, change notes to blank after the statement's updated for the beginning statement note. And after I create this statement, it will take that note out, and then that will be blank again for the next time. Now, if they're still a deadbeat, they don't pay it the next month, you can always come back in and you can put in a new beginning statement note and tell them that they really need to call your office, or whatever you're going to do. And you can put that at the beginning or the ending of the statement. If there is a statement note that you need this client to see every time, you can then just leave these boxes unchecked and then put in whatever beginning or ending statement note that you'd like to do there. And it would stay on that statement every time for this particular client. So there's two different ways that you can do that here. You can leave it, on the statement always and just leave these boxes open, or you can have it just show up on one statement and check the box so it'll clear it after it's done. Any questions on beginning and ending statement notes?
No questions right now. I would point out that one example of beginning statement notes on a per client or per matter basis that I've seen is some attorneys, especially older attorneys, like to do this because it's something that they used to do a lot. It's called preamble, and that means that at the beginning of the statement it might say, in continued services regarding estate of Marilyn Jones and the probating of said estate, including : and that's kind of like a preamble to what's then going to follow. I tend to see that in Well, my father used to do bills that way, and I know that I've seen a couple other people do it that way, where they'll have preamble, and that is a good place for that. Another thing that I might point out.
Paul, hold on one second. I've got Ann has her hand raised. I'm going to unmute you, Ann, if you want to go ahead and ask your question. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
I just have a question about the notes. And we have, the interest rates going out to everyone's statements. Now, if I wanted to put in on the statement options tab for a second note just for one client, where would that go? Would that be, where would that fit in?
So you're already using statement notes
for
every both?
And it's an ending statement note.
And, you're doing
and is it here on this case screen?
No. It has, the interest charge, and it's at the end of each statement. But my question is, if we go in just for one particular client, and I wanted to add a second ending statement, would that be above that? I guess I could play around with it.
I believe it is above. I believe that the ones that are in the templates are what comes last.
Okay.
We can check on that, though. Mary, don't make a note of that.
I can play around with it. I just thought maybe you would know offhand.
I'm pretty sure that the one for the client would come first, and the one for the template would come second.
Okay. All righty.
I was wrong once in 1957, however, so you'll want to be careful.
Well,
I can't believe that.
Yeah, well, I wasn't born yet, so you can forgive me.
Here, I'm going to take this for a second, Paul.
Okay.
I think we can just do a real quick, just put a test, and change it. I'm getting the lag. I'm just going to make it so.
Let me save it. You're going to go print a statement real quick?
Yeah, just do a draft real quick, because then it'll show on there or not. Or on a, I'm sorry, final, whatever you want to do. Probably the final.
And we're in 415, and we're going to generate a statement.
I would change the final template to one that we had put. We know there's one on like the hours or the final. It has a recap.
Yeah, there's the test. You're right. Okay, hold on one second. So if we go in here and we change the statement options for draft, I'm just going to, we put it on final, right? Or did we do it on hours?
Yeah, that's fine.
Hours?
On both. There's an ending on both.
And now if we do a draft for that client, well, did we have a?
Which one did you use?
Final? I used final.
Yeah, I think there's one on final.
Maybe the one takes precedence over the other. And we'll play with this a little bit, and we'll email you and let you know what we find.
Fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Nothing else. Okay, so that must mean we're done. I will ask, as I always do, does anyone have any lawyer jokes? No? How about this one? Dog runs into a butcher shop, grabs a roast off the counter. The butcher recognizes the dog. It belongs to a neighbor of his who happens to be a lawyer. So he calls up the lawyer and he says, if your dog stole a roast out of my butcher shop, would you be liable for the cost of the meat? And the lawyer says, sure. How much was the roast? And the butcher says it was $7.95. So 2 days later, the butcher gets an envelope in the mail from the lawyer with a check for $7.98 and a bill for $75 for a quarter hour for a telephone consultation. That is the end of our first Watercooler virtual user group meeting for 2010. Everybody have a good day and a good rest of the month. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.